95.7 The Fin, Streaming Eagle Sports Podcast. I'm Christian,
I'm Nathaniel.
and today we have a very special guest.
We get to sit down with USI head men's basketball coach Stan Gouard to discuss what from his expectations from the beginning of the season and what he thinks the team is doing now.
And obviously, a lot has changed in recent with the transfer of Emmanuel Little. That's something else that we're going to talk about. Just get into that a little bit deeper, see what we can get out of Stan as far as that goes. With that, Stan Gouard's on the call. We're going to hop on over there, and we'll be back at the end. We're joined by USI head men's basketball coach Stan Gouard. And coach, of course, some big news broke over yesterday with Emmanuel Little's transfer. Just kind of want to dive into that a little bit. Was that something you had talked to Emmanuel about prior to his decision, or how did that kind of play out?
Yeah, we've had a lot of ups and downs all year, Emmanuel and I, in terms of, just buying into the total team concept. We had a number of meetings one-on-one between the two of us. And as you guys probably followed the game a couple of days ago at Springfield, he didn't play the second half. And I wasn't too particularly happy with, just some of his actions. Now, he came back after the game and we sat down and we just thought it was in our best interest to part ways. I wish him the best. He's a fine young man, a fierce competitor, but our visions just didn't align in terms of what I expected from a culture standpoint and what he wanted. So I think it was the best decision for both parties to part ways. We can get a fresh start, and I can focus on the 14 guys that I have to coach.
Now, do you have any initial thoughts about Emmanuel Little transferring?
No, not at all. Just wish him well. We talked to him the past couple of days, and I just wish him the best, that he finds the happiness that he deserves. He's, like I said, he's a fine young man. I have no ill will towards him. It's just the marriage didn't work out, and I just want him to find his happiness at some point. And obviously it wasn't within my program, and I just want to see him do well, whether he's here or somewhere else.
And just kind of want to talk about how this affects your team. Obviously, I'm sure you guys had some sort of discussion after all this was said and done. Just kind of how that discussion went with the team and some of the guys' initial reactions.
Well, guys understand. With any team, there's going to be some guys that are not happy with their role. And guys understand that. That's just part of being on the team. I played on a lot of teams and have coached a lot of teams where guys wasn't too particularly happy. And, some guys hung in there, some guys did not. And in this case, Emmanuel decided not to hang in, and we have to move on. And like I said a second ago, we have to coach the guys that want to be here and are going to buy into what we want to do. And the guys are ready to step up. I had a team meeting yesterday, met with some guys one-on-one, and that's what team is all about. When one guy is down or decides to step away from the program, you got to have that next man up mentality. We play really good basketball at Springfield the last 30 minutes without Emmanuel. Gave some other guys opportunity to step up, but it's one of those things where some of those guys who haven't been getting the minutes that they wanted to attain when Emmanuel was here, it's their time now. So we've kind of been thinking this was going to happen for a while. We just didn't know when. We kind of as coaches have already kind of figured out, like, if this should happen, what are our next steps? And we're ready to make a move and move forward and not look back.
And of course, this is really shocking because it comes in the middle of a season. We're halfway through the conference schedule. Do you have any thoughts about Emmanuel's transfer coming midway through the season?
Not at all. If you look at Division I schools, there's been a number of guys that have transferred midway during the season. There was a couple guys we were talking to that were thinking about leaving. So it's normal. It happens all the time. And we can't sit here and ridicule Emmanuel. I think what's most important in his case is he find what makes him happy. And I support that 110%. It's unfortunate because I would have loved to have helped Emmanuel get to where he wanted to go from a basketball standpoint after college. But I'm not a part of that, and I'm sad about it. But at the same time, I have to focus on the guys that are here right now and not too much worry about what's going to happen. We're going to counsel him along the way to hope he lands at the place where he wants to be. And if he has any questions or need any advice, even after he settles somewhere else, that door is always going to be open for Emmanuel. And that goes to any guy I've ever coached, whether they stayed or not, any guy that's ever came to this USI program, or even some of the guys I've coached at Indy. It's just one of those things where I'm in this, guys. I'm in this to help the kids out, not for any other reason. I know I earn a living by doing this, and this is how I provide my family. But the other thing I get out of this is making sure guys have a chance in life to be successful, And I always, go back and look over the years of guys who I've coached, whether they stay in the program or not. I've always go back and look at where they are right now versus where they came from. And I think Emmanuel and is in a better place right now than he was when I took the job back in April. And I think he'd be in a better place once he graduates and wherever he decides to go.
And kind of going on to the basketball aspect of it, you talked about those last 30 minutes at Springfield the other day. Just kind of talking about using those 30 minutes as kind of a blueprint for how you guys are going to play without Emmanuel.
Well, some things transpired during the basketball game that I wasn't too particularly happy with. And with every story, there's two sides. I was trying to get the gist of what happened. And we decided that we were going to not play Emmanuel. And, we thought about playing the second half, but we decided not to the second half after we got going. And the guys played well. Everybody stepped up. Clayton Hughes played big minutes. Jilani Simmons, excuse me. Jilani Simmons played really well for us down the stretch. And you can't take away from what Josh Price did. Josh Price was an absolute beast in the post, ran the court well. And I just think, he saw that he had a chance to put the team on his back on Saturday, and he did that, along with those other guys stepping up. So it kind of gave you a sense of what we could be. Shall this situation happen? Now, I didn't envision this happen. I never thought that we would be at this point with Emmanuel, but here we are, and we all got to put our big boy pants on and move on. But Josh, like I said, put the team on his back at Springfield, and it opened up our guys' ability to get open shots on the perimeter. If you think about most teams, we played over the weeks, over the months, have when you played those two guys together, it was so easy to crowd Emmanuel or Josh in the post because you didn't have our guys in the perimeter getting many shots. In this particular game at Springfield, with four guys on the perimeter who were 35, 40-point three-point shooters, it was hard to double down on Josh. Josh made good plays kicking out that led to Clayton Hughes, making a couple, Jilani Simmons making a couple, Tyler Henry making a big shot in the corner in the first half. We played faster. We was able to get the ball in Mateo's hands. We just played at a different pace. And I think guys just saw an opportunity to step in where we were missing a guy like Emmanuel, and they stepped up to the challenge, and they embraced it very well.
And stepping away from the Emmanuel Little news, we'll talk about the most recent COVID-19 protocols and I guess you would say quarantine with the basketball team. Could you talk about everything that's going on there and how things are going with the guys and yourself, of course?
Well, I just sent a text out right before I got on with you guys about next steps. So we have a young man on our team that tested positive for COVID, and I won't say his name, but everybody knows watching the news that we are now in quarantine. But this is the first time all year that since the season started that we've had a positive case. So kudos goes to our guys for taking care of themselves thus far. But you can't control what happens. You only control the controllables. And we had a young man tested positive. Everybody else on the team tested negative, and that was we tested on Monday upon our return from Springfield. We immediately called our guys and sent everybody back home because we was geared to practice on Monday. and everybody had to go home, including coaches. The young man who tested positive is back at home with his family right now, and we're praying for a recovery for he and his family. I know his family's already had it, so he's okay, but he's in isolation at home and is no longer on campus. But all of our guys are right now in quarantine, and the plan right now is we test again tomorrow as a team and the coaching staff and the student assistants, and if everything fares well. In terms of we get a lot of negative tests back, we can resume practice on Sunday. We would have now been in quarantine for the maximum amount of days that you're supposed to be in quarantine. And if that's the case, then we practice on Sunday. We got to follow the return to play protocol that's put in place by John Mark Hall and Dr. Rashawn and his team. So with that being said, we cannot play our game against William and Jewell on Thursday. We are working right now diligently with William Jewell to move that game on Friday at William Jewell and play a back-to-back Friday at Jewell and Saturday at Rockhurst. So that's the plan right now. Prayerfully, everything comes back negative on tomorrow. I'm sorry, on Thursday rather, with our COVID testing, and then we'll go from there. But we have to wait and see.
You mentioned the rescheduling and shuffling around the games. Obviously, just kind of talk about like some of the challenges that you guys have had with rescheduling. A lot of games being played in this very short amount of days.
Oh man, it's we here in February. You guys will see, and everybody will see that we're going to play an NBA schedule here pretty soon. We'll start playing 3 games a week to finish out the season, because I think, if my memory serves me correct, we were right about 5 or 6 games that we're trying to make up. Quincy, Lewis, McKendree, Springfield, Jewell. I've been shuffling things around, and if you guys can see the calendar that I have in front of me on my desk, it's color-coded red, blue, and yellow with all kinds of X marks. I just went over so many scenarios that we can probably modify the schedule to move some games around. We work with other schools to move some of their games so we can fit them in certain games. And God, we may not get all these games in. We don't know, but we're going to do our best on our side to get these games shuffled and rotated. I've worked with, like I said, other coaches, and John Mark Hall has had a hand in all of this stuff along with my coaching staff, and we're just trying to figure out a way to at least get enough games in to qualify for the conference tournament. It takes 11 games to qualify for the conference tournament, but we need as many games as possible to also put ourselves in a good position to qualify for the region tournament. So games are important, and I'm trying to again squeeze some guys in and play, 3 games in a week. I'm sure our student athletes would love to play 3 games in a week, because that means less practice. But we're going to do our best to one, make sure that we're not overwhelming our athletes with so many games back to back to back. And right now, I think we got a good plan in place to play some Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday games, so we can have a day between the rest.
Now, before this quarantine, it really seemed like your whole team was in a groove. You guys were winning games, playing great offense, shooting the ball particularly well, and especially on the defensive end, stopping other teams and all your opponents. After this quarantine, how are you going to get your team back in that groove?
Well, it's just like riding a bike, man. These kids have been doing this their whole life. I think it's just going to take these guys getting their legs back up under them and getting back in basketball shape. When these guys, as they're growing up and they going out in their driveways or going to the parks and working on basketball, they're working on shots and dribbling. So it's in their DNA. A lot of these guys have been playing basketball since they were 2 or 3 years old. So it's only going to take hopefully a couple of days of our guys getting back in shape. We're going to schedule some Zooms with our guys over the course of the next couple of days, just to break down some game film. We've already done some advanced scouting to prepare for William Jewell if this game happens. It's just going to come back, getting the timing back, getting our legs back. The stuff we've been doing, and our terminology hasn't changed since day one. So that's going to be pretty easy. And I'm sure these guys have spent some time. I encouraged Tyler Henry yesterday to go back and look at our William and Jewell game, look at our our game against McKendree when they had good games, so they can see where they, score the basketball at, watch themselves on defensive. And then I want these guys to critique themselves a little bit, just like we do as coaches. And I think that'll help them out. But we'll have them ready to go, guys. We just need about 3 or 4 days to get the legs on them, go over some dry run stuff and then play a basketball game next Friday, hopefully. Now, you mentioned a good point, man. It's hard to come back. So I thought we were starting to find our groove a little bit. Guys were kind of in a rhythm and understood each other more. And I thought we were playing really good basketball the last couple of games, especially our last 3 halves. I think we scored 44 points in our last half at Lewis in each of the halves at Springfield. And we were scoring the basketball well. And then you start playing well, and boom, you hit that brick wall to go back in quarantine. Luckily, we ended that on a high, and hopefully we can build off the momentum we had from our last few games and carry that over into practice next week and into our games the following weekend.
I think the last time we talked on the podcast was towards the end of November, right before the season started.
And why so long, man? It's been a long time, man. I'm starting to think you guys don't like me, man.
But we kind of talked about your expectations for the team and just kind of wondering where you are now or your thoughts on the season up to now compared to where your expectations were at that point in time.
Well, we always put on our practice plans that Rome was not built in one day. And so we understand the process as coaches. Our thing was to get the guys to understand the process as young 18 to 22-year-olds. And I think over time, if you think about our first game, we got punched in the face against Rockhurst, and guys were doubting each other. We were doubting ourselves. We were doubting the coaches. We was doubting our ability to exceed on the basketball court. And we came back the very next game and put up a 30-point win over William and Jewell. And, basketball is a game of runs, and the seasons, there's a lot of highs and lows. And I hate to say this, but I think the best thing that happened to us was that first Rockhurst game where we got challenged day one, because we were dealing with some things in-house that I was really worried about going into that basketball game. Emmanuel Little didn't start the first game because of some disciplinary things, and we had some other things going on. But we came back after that game, and our guys showed tremendous effort in bouncing back after a tough loss and coming back and taking that William Jewell game and using that as a learning tool to come back and play the way we wanted to play. And are we where I want to be yet? No. But I didn't want to peak too soon. I wanted to start, peaking about midway through the season. I think we're doing that right now. Guys are playing probably their best basketball since we started the season. You look at guys like Chance Coyle, who's a plus 26 in the plus minus category in our game at Springfield without scoring a point. He came in and he embraced his role in the defensive end, and he guarded very well. Tyler Henry guarded very well. Tyler Dancy continues to prosper on the court because it's hard for him to get into a rhythm because he's playing behind Josh, but I think he understands what we need him to do right now because the way Josh is playing, he knows his minutes are 3 or 4 minutes here and there, and his job is to go into the basketball game, beat up the opposing team's big man, wear him down, and let Josh finish him off. So everybody's now starting to embrace their role a lot better, and that's the beauty of team because everybody has a role, and I think our guys are now starting to embrace the roles a whole lot better. And you see the production of this basketball team, and I think it has a lot to do with everybody's, like I said, embracing their role and sometimes exceeding what we ask them to do on the basketball court.
And just to talk about a few of the players that have done exceptionally well this season. First off, talk about a little bit about Mateo Rivera. He's done very well this season. He was out for the first start of the season. That shoulder was bothering him a lot. Could you talk about the way he's played this far into the season?
Yeah, Mateo's been great. He has a great basketball IQ. He understands what we need from him from a coaching standpoint. but he also understands what all the guys need as well. He understands where guys need the ball at, in terms of their sweet spots. He's got the toughest job on the court besides the coaches because he has to keep everybody happy on the court. Also, he has to try to get his own. And he took a back seat a couple games when he just didn't have it going and made sure everybody else was happy. He's also been that guy that has been on guys for not bringing in practice every day or missing defensive assignments in the basketball game. And I can't have enough guys like that. He is a coach's dream. And I think he's going to be better here down the stretch because now he's going to be called upon to score the ball more. He's going to be called upon to lead a lot more because we're missing one of our leaders and scorers. And I think if anybody can do it, it's Mateo. His brother played in the NBA, played at Georgetown, so he comes from a tremendous basketball background. It's in his DNA, like I said a second ago. His brother, Devontae, was a really good basketball player at North Central. Went on to play at Georgetown University for the Hoyas, and then also played for the Chicago Bulls. So he understands the game a whole lot better rather than the average guy at this level.
And then, of course, someone else who's really impressed this season, Josh Price, big numbers all around. Let's kind of talk about Josh and, of course, how you expect him to play throughout the rest of the season with the experience.
Well, I always thought from day one that Josh, of our guys, I always thought that Josh was the most skilled player on the basketball team. We always talked about how good Emmanuel was. I thought Emmanuel just played harder than Josh. I always felt like Josh was more skilled. And you see Josh, and it's no knock on Emmanuel, no knock on Josh. It's just what I see. This is my personal opinion. So, but I just thought I always felt like Josh was one of the most skilled guys in the league. I also felt like Josh was snubbed last year from an all-conference bid in the GOVC. He got my vote. And I think he's feeling that chip on his shoulder now to prove to naysayers that someone made a mistake, last year. Josh is averaging, a double-double, if not close to it. And he just brings it every night. I saw something in Josh at Springfield. I saw him play hard finally. He calls himself smooth for a reason because he plays at a pace that I'm trying to make him take it up a couple more notches. And he played at a pace the other day with some fire in him that I've never seen before. I saw him get that dunk at Springfield, and he kind of finally celebrated a good play by yelling at one of his teammates because he was having made the play. And I think if we can get that fire in Josh every single night, he can easily put up 25, 30 points a night along with 10, 15 rebounds. And I'm blessed to have him on my team and really excited about what we're going to do here down the stretch now that he's going to be the guy that we're going to try to put on. We're going to try to put the team on his back and let him will it to victory.
And a guy that is really, really fun to watch, Jilani Simmons, can really light it up from deep at any point in time, anywhere on the court. What do you have to say about the way he plays and the dynamic he puts out on the floor?
Oh my gosh, this young man is now granted, we're going to have Jilani for 2 more years after this year because he gets this year back. And you guys think he's good now. Just imagine how he's going to be once he has a spring and a summer in the weight room with Josh Wilderman, a spring with the coaching staff, and just here to really focus on his basketball game. Jelani's playing good basketball right now. His confidence is at an all-time high right now, and I'm really excited about what Jelani's going to do. He's shooting the ball very well, and I always tell him he's shooting 4-pointers and not 3-pointers. He's shooting that ball deep. But, he just feeds off the emotions of Mateo and Josh. When those guys get it going and they demand so much attention on the offensive end, it frees Jilani up. When Mateo goes out of the game, we move Jilani into the point guard role and allow him to start trying to get into a rhythm on the offensive end. He's embraced that very well. And excited for him, man. He had a tough break there at Youngstown before he came here. Was disappointed in the way he was playing at Youngstown. and came here and kind of rejuvenated himself. And I think his best basketball is ahead of him as well.
You mentioned the extra year of eligibility. Just wanted to kind of circle back to that. Who of your seniors do you expect to have back next year?
All of them.
Okay.
I hope to have all those guys back. Josh Price, Clayton, and Mateo are seniors, and I expect those guys to come back. Now, it's kind of tricky because Josh is 6'8", and Josh is going to be courted from some agents and from some European guys to come and play pro basketball, and I'm sure he's going to entertain that, and rightfully so. But I think Josh got to make the best decision for himself. All those guys are invited back, but we're going to sit down at some point and have some uncomfortable conversations about, okay, next steps. What do you want to do? And the thing with me, I have experience at the next level of playing, and I'll make sure I give these guys some sound advice whether to stay or go. I think the most important thing in all these guys' case is to stick around and earn a USI degree. And I know it would benefit each of these guys to stick around another year to earn their college degree, because it's important that they walk out of here with that. It'd be shameful on all of us for each of these young men not to attain a degree. And that's first and foremost. And I think a couple guys of our seniors can possibly graduate this summer or the fall and start pursuing a master's degree. And they may not appreciate this right now, the degrees right now, but when they become, after the ball stops bouncing one day, they got to have that plan B to fall back on, and that's their college degree. And I'm going to push that. That's the conversation I'm going to have. Now, if they go and decides to go and play, we'll offer some fifth-year aid so they can graduate. But from a guy who's been through it before, it's so hard to graduate while you are not in college, or you doing it remotely in another country, because I did that my last 9 hours. So we'll have some grown man conversations at some point and talk through next steps. And if some opportunities come where these guys cannot turn them down, then I think they should take those opportunities. But at the same time, the big picture is graduation and making sure they come back and finish their degree.
And a senior on the team that everyone seems to really look over is Clayton Hughes. He's a dynamic on the court. He's been getting a lot of minutes this season, a starting role anymore in the past couple games. What do you have to say about the way he's played, especially these last couple games?
Clayton's an exciting guy to be around, man. He went through some turbulent times when I took the job, and Clayton's like me, a second chance guy who just embraced his role and embraced this second chance that he's given. And he has been an absolute joy to coach, knock on wood. He comes to practice every day to work. He really, really enjoys his team. And he's playing good basketball right now. He's shooting the ball very well at a high clip. He's guarding much better than in what he was a few weeks ago. He's one of those guys that, from an athletic standpoint, he's probably one of our best athletes on the team, and people don't see it. With the way we're going to play here down the stretch, we're starting to play a little bit faster. I remember the game in Springfield, Clayton caught a alley-oop pass from Jilani in transition. And I think there's more of that to come. Clayton's starting to fly around a little bit better. His body's feeling better. He started getting better shape, which is why you're seeing him play the way he's playing right now. And yes, he's getting overshadowed by so many other guys, but I've been calling Clayton the silent assassin, because he'll quietly have 15, 17 points, and you're like, when did he score the point? You never see it, but he's doing it quietly. And we got to get him now to be able to put together two halves of basketball. Usually he goes off in the first half, and then second half kind of disappears. So we got to start calling more play calls for Clayton in the second half, late in the basketball game, where he can get to his spots to be very productive at.
One player I did want to highlight, who hasn't necessarily played much this year, but it was kind of an interesting situation, is Kassan Casey and his situation coming to USI. I just kind of wanted to talk to you about how that all came about.
Well, I knew some people down in Madisonville. Chris Bowles, Hall of Famer, that played here at USI, works in the school system in Madisonville. And Chris Bowles is good friends with some people in Kayshawn's circle. And Kayshawn announced he was going to be transferring out. And I get a message from Chris that this young man is in the transfer portal. And I should take a look at him. And I didn't think we'd get the kid. A kid that size with 4 years to play, usually he's swept up by another Division I. So my thing was to the people who was in Kayshawn's circle was, you know, a 6'9" transfer at Christmas don't come around too often. And he's going to get swept up by a higher level of basketball. He wanted to stay close. He had already visited USI with the previous staff, with Coach Watson and those guys and Coach Gant. And I remember walking over to Coach Gant like, hey, you remember this kid? And Coach Gant was like, we got to take him because the kid's going to be good. It's kind of unfortunate. The main reason why Kayshawn transferred was because his coach, Anthony Stewart, who was a good friend of mine, passed away at the beginning of the season. And he just felt like he went to play for that coach and he wanted a fresh start. And, rest in peace, Coach Stewart, and prayers goes out to his family. But the relationship that Kayshawn had with Anthony's family, with Anthony Coach Stewart rather, was one that he just could not, he couldn't forget about it. And he still talked about it to this day. So he just wanted a fresh start. And once we got on the phone with Kayshawn, he drove over and I let him know that I knew Coach Stewart very well. And we went back, Coach Stewart and I went back from 19, 20 years ago. And I think that was a selling factor. And we developed a relationship, and the rest is history. And unfortunately for him right now, and I keep reminding Kayshawn of this, he started late. We were months into the season, and he started late. I want to put him in the basketball game, but he's so far behind of what we're doing right now. And Tyler Dancy has stepped up, because they play the same position, but Tyler Dancy stepped up. I think once Kayshawn gets into the shape you want to play, into shape rather, and once he learns our playbook, he's going to be a force to reckon with in years to come. I think he's going to help us out a whole lot. But right now, we're still trying to get him to understand the playbook and the things we're looking for. Now, he got in. He did get into one game. We got in foul trouble, and I think it was about 2 minutes and 19 seconds. He was pretty good. We hope to use him more now that Emmanuel has departed from the team, because Josh is going to play the 5 and the 4. We'll shift Josh from two different positions to two different positions, and try to play Dancy with Josh Price, or even Kayshawn and Casey with Josh Price as well. So he just got to remain patient, stay the course, and when his number's called, he's got to be able to answer the bell.
And Casey, a great pickup midway through the season, but again, with the year coming to an, I guess not coming to an end, but we're ending to the end of the season, and thoughts of scouting, finding new players to come in. How is the scouting coming along, and are you looking at many high school athletes, especially whenever you have a senior group staying an extra year?
Yeah, per recruit, I can't talk about names, but yes, we are actively recruiting guys. We have a database of maybe 75 to 100 guys we're looking at with 1 or 2 scholarships. We signed Jack Milkey out of Chicago already. He'll be a freshman coming in next year as a stretch 4. Remember, Jacob Alakovich is still a guy that will be playing next year. And then we have 2 freshmen that are sitting, Elijah Jones, and not sitting rather, but have not played very much, Elijah Jones and Keegan O'Neal. But we have guys that we've been actively recruiting, and we only need to bring in 1 or 2 guys pending our seniors stick around. And when the season concludes, we'll be able to jump on this at 110 miles per hour, because with COVID protocols and whatnot, we're not allowed to go into many high school gyms because of the COVID protocols. So a lot of the things we're doing is watching games online, making phone calls constantly, and just circling back to some guys we've seen before. But we got a pretty good list composed of guys that we've been talking to, and we're gonna circle back to as well.
And my final question, personally, just kind of want to get an updated injury report for you guys. What you expect to have? Who you expect to have when you guys clear quarantine?
Well, the only guy that's dealing with injuries right now, Jacob Alakic, of course, he's redshirt, but he had surgery a couple of weeks ago. That's why you haven't seen him around. He went back to Grand Rapids to have his surgery back in December, and we allowed Jacob to stay home and start the rehab process back in Grand Rapids. So he will not practice the rest of the year. The process of rehab is 3 to 6 months. And me knowing Jacob the way he is, he'll be back on the court in 3 months because he only knows one speed, and that's full throttle. Tyler Martin tweaked his ankle about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he's pretty close to returning to practice. And other than that, at this point during the season, there's a lot of nagging injuries that you just got to keep visiting Laura in the training room and keep taking care of your body. Prevention is everything, and the more you take care of your bodies and get ahead of those injuries early on, the more longevity you'll have going down the stretch of the season.
And my final question, personally, at the beginning of the season, the motto was national championship or bust. Is that still the mindset for you and your team?
That's my plan. I don't see it any other way. 1 second, I'm sorry. Here it is. No, that's my plan. I will never go into a season without the goal of winning the national championship or a conference championship or a regional championship. And that's what we instilled in our guys from day one. We're sitting at first place in our division, and I think we're about 2 or 3 games out of first place overall. So we still have a chance. I don't rule anything out. We still have 9, 10 games left over, and I think we're in a really, really good place right now. And we're playing our best basketball. So for me, yes, national championship or bust for me, because that's instilled in me, and I think I've done a decent job of instilling in our guys from day one. And our guys still feel that way. They talk about it all the time. We had a couple hiccups, but we're in a pretty good place to contend to cut those nets down in March. I'm excited about it.
All right, I think that's all we've got. We really appreciate the time as always.
Do not let 2 months go by before you guys have me back on.
Will
All right,
do.
I'm gonna hold you to that. All right.
right.
All right. I appreciate you guys. You guys do a great job. And remember, man, I tell our guys every day, man, stay positive, right? And test negative, correct?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Right.
Be careful,
Thanks,
guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. This has been the Scream Eagle Sports Podcast with Christian, Nathaniel, and Stan Gerard, of course. Really a lot of good information in there. A really long podcast for us.
Yeah, usually we're only talking for about 15 minutes. I think it's been 40.
Yeah, about 35, 40 minutes on this one. So really, once again, want to thank Stan Gerard for the time and obviously answered a lot of tough questions for us.
Yeah, I got to talk a little bit about Emmanuel Little's midseason transfer, the quarantine process, and some top players for Southern Indiana, and learned a lot and definitely going to be useful for the broadcast in a few minutes.
Absolutely will be. Of course, USI hopes to be back in action next Friday against William Jewell if all things go to plan, and then the day after that will be against Rockhurst. Those are on the road. 95.7 The Spin will be on the call, so make sure you're tuned in to 95.7 The Spin for those games, as well as all USI women's basketball action. I think that's it. For Nathaniel, I'm Christian, and we want to thank you once again for listening to the Scream Eagle Sports Podcast.